Hello, my name is Dennis, and welcome to my trailer park white trash mobile home kitchen. I really do live in a mobile home, in a trailer park, and this is my kitchen. Even though it is not among the most popular recipes on my website, I am yet again going to return to the subject of lamb, because I love eating lamb and I like cooking lamb. I found this recipe for a honey glazed lamb with herbes de Provence. Herbes de Provence is a mixture of herbs. You buy it already mixed together. And I thought this lamb looked really delicious, so I want to try it. Let's get into the ingredients I'm going to be using for doing my honey glazed lamb with herbes de Provence. I'm going to be using a boneless leg of lamb. This is close to 4.5 pounds. Anything 3.5 to 4.5 pounds will be fine. That's about 1.5 to 2 kilograms. Salt and freshly ground black pepper. 1/3 of a cup, which is 80 milliliters. If you're doing it by weight, it's 100 grams of honey. I'm using clover honey. 3 tablespoons of herbes de Provence. 1/2 cup, about 120 milliliters of dry red wine, and then 1/4 cup, about 60 milliliters of Marsala. Open out your lamb. If it comes with tied or with one of those elastic nets on it, remove all that and open out your lamb. This is a good time to trim any larger pieces of fat from out of there that you don't want to get rid of, and then put about 2 tablespoons of honey inside of your lamb. Just kind of squeeze that around. Put a nice coating in there. This is not an exact science like baking, although we are going to be roasting this in an oven. So you don't have to be as precise as you do like when you're making cake or baking bread. All right, that should be good enough. And then coat the inside with some black pepper. Season it with some salt. And put about 2 tablespoons of your herbes de Provence on the inside. This looks like a lot of herbs to me, but this is lamb. And lamb benefits from being heavy-handed with herbs because it has rather a strong flavor as a meat. So now I'm going to tie this up and do the outside. I have some kitchen twine here set aside. Tying a roast is so that you get it into a compact shape that allows it to cook more evenly. Yes, that's a plane going overhead. Yes, I do live near the airport. That way you don't get any overcooked portions of the roast and undercooked portions, hopefully. You're looking for uniform cooking. One more down here, and then I'm going to tie it end to end. I'm trying to do a surgeon's knot here, and usually they hold pretty well. That one just needed to be done against the meat to hold. One more. To bring these end pieces in. Like so. Okay. I'm going to turn this over so it's this fatty rind side up, and then I'm going to be coating this side with honey, herbs, salt, and pepper as well. I took my cap off my honey so I can pour larger volumes of honey onto this and then kind of spread that around. It's going to drool down onto the baking pan anyways, but hopefully keep most of it on there. I'm putting about 3 tablespoons of honey on the outside. I've already got some honey that's kind of squeezing out from the inside after having tied the meat. Okay, same thing, salt and pepper. Lightly salt that. I don't use a lot of salt. I can always salt it at the table. I want to just season it a little bit. And then finally the remainder of my herbs de Provence. Okay. All right, that is ready to go into the oven. I've put the lamb on a kind of a low rack inside of this lined baking pan. This is my 1/2 cup of wine, to which I've added 1/2 cup of water. So I'm going to pour that in there. And then I'm going to cook this. I like my lamb on the medium rare side, so I'm going to cook this to an internal temperature of 125 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 52 degrees Celsius. If you like it kind of medium well, you can go up to 135 Fahrenheit, 57 Celsius. And if you like it really well done, 145 degrees Fahrenheit, 63 Celsius. I definitely wouldn't go any higher than that because the meat will be tough. And if I haven't already mentioned it, I'm heating my oven up to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 degrees Celsius. I had some free time, so I went onto the internet to get some ideas. One of the things I like to eat with lamb is oven roasted vegetables, but I wanted to sear the vegetables this time because I wanted to use my brand new stovetop griddle. And I saw this video in which this Italian lady was pouring, she had a really hot cast iron skillet on the stove, and she poured extra virgin olive oil into it, and I thought, oh, this ought to be fun. This should be interesting. And sure enough, billows of smoke came up out of the pan. Extra virgin olive oil is great stuff. You can cook with it at a low temperature, but it burns relatively easily. What is the temperature? 375, and that's 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I have a chart in front of me, or 191 degrees Celsius. That's the temperature at which the oil burns. The trick is, if you're going to do that, sear your vegetables or your meat with a high temperature oil, such as safflower oil. That's what I'm going to use, because you can heat that up to over 500 degrees before it starts smoking. And then flavor the vegetables afterwards when you go to serve them by drizzling extra virgin olive oil over them. So what I'm going to do today to eat with my lamb is I'm going to cook some slices of potato, yam, and butternut squash in the oven after I sear them to get some bar marks on them. And then I'm going to use my griddle on the top of the stove to sear and cook watery vegetables. I'm going to use onion and slices of eggplant. I've been heating my griddle up. I brushed it with some safflower oil, and I can see that it's just barely starting to smoke. So this has come up to temperature. Again, safflower oil I can heat up to 510 degrees before it starts going. There's my white potato and my yam. I'm going to put my butternut squash where I have room. think I'm going to have to wait a little on that. Now I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit because this is starting to smoke. I'm going to turn this down to medium-low. My griddle is hot. All I care about at this point is just getting grill marks on my vegetables here. I'm going to leave these alone for a good 4 or 5 minutes. Because if you start moving them around, your grill marks, your bar marks are going to be all over the place. I have in the meantime prepared a glass baking dish with clarified butter. I'm using clarified butter because my oven is at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and clarified butter has a smoke point of 485 degrees Fahrenheit, 252 Celsius. So that'll keep these really safe while I'm cooking them. You can see I got some good bar marks on my vegetables here. I'm going to place my vegetables in there. So there are my vegetables ready to go into the oven. I'm going to brush these again with, I shouldn't say again, I'm going to brush these with some more melted clarified butter. Again, because it's got a high smoke point, and it'll also give it some nice flavor. Can't damage that by putting too much on there. Okay. Then I'm going to season these with a little bit of black pepper. Some salt. And a little bit more of my herbs de Provence that I have on the lamb. I'm going to put these on the vegetables. Perfect. So these are going to be my oven-baked vegetables. The onions and the eggplant I'm going to do just on top of the stove. I'm going to cover this with foil. I'm going to put this in the oven. My lamb is on a rack in the upper third of the oven. That's giving me some room in the lower third for the second rack. I'm going to put these on the lower rack and then cook these with the lamb. I want you to see my lamb fresh from the oven. Doesn't that look incredible? It's darkened because of the honey. So that sugar in the honey left a nice dark glaze on there. There's plenty of drippings in the pan. I poured into the bottom of the pan that 1/4 cup of Marsala. I'm going to loosen up the fond, the brown bits in the bottom, strain that into a pan, and then reduce that a little bit after I skim off the oil. Oh, in the meantime, I'm going to be tenting this with foil and letting this sit for 10 to 15 minutes. 125 degrees sounds like a very low temperature, but this is going to come up to 135 before I'm ready to carve it, and that's a rare, medium rare temperature. Here are most of my roasted vegetables. The onions and the eggplant I left on the grill until they were fully done. The rest were done in the oven, the potatoes, the yams, and the butternut squash. Now is when you add extra virgin olive oil. Just drizzle that over the top, because that's your flavoring, and it's not overheated, it's not burnt. And now that is ready to go on the table. My lamb now has had time to rest. I'm going to carve these. The end pieces will of course be the most well done. So for those who like their lamb well done, you can serve them those outer pieces. Once you start moving in toward the center, that's when you start getting into the pink meat, like you can see there. Ah, that looks delicious. I'm going to get that onto a plate, and we are ready to eat. I put my reduction sauce in a little ramekin here, and I'm going to spoon only a little bit of this over my meat because this is a very strong, dark sauce. I mean, it looks darker than Worcestershire sauce. And now I'm ready to Taste this. Oh, this looks so good. First, I've got to try my vegetables. I've never done this before where I've put bar marks on my vegetables and then roasted them. Tender, delicious. Oh. Okay, that is good. Oh, that meat is, I mean, the vegetables are so good. Now, my lamb. I love lamb. See, that honey gives it a little bit of sweetness, but the herbs de Provence add a lot of flavor to it, and that goes well with the rich flavor of lamb. So excuse me, I'm going to go enjoy my, it's a little bit late, 1:15. I'm going to enjoy my lunch. For a printable PDF copy of this recipe with step-by-step photographs, visit the White Trash Cooking website and look on the home page or in the recipe archive.